Just what I needed. Some me time.
Just what I need is some seed time.
I never get this time to just think.
Oh, thank God. I was almost alone with my thoughts.
Lavender and rosemary. My favorite.
Gasoline and, WD-40.
No need for perfect lines. Art is an expression.
Look at these crisp, clean wines.
Linda, come over. Let's have some wine. Let's have some laughs.
Dick, can I come over and cut your grass? You got that zero turn, right? Yeah, let me just put my good jeans on. I'll be over.
Denise, you are married. You can't be out there getting
Screwed from the front side. I was screwing from the back side. Well, that makes a lot more sense.
Doesn't need to be perfect. Just needs to come from the heart.
I think the zero turn's better for my heart. Wonder if Linda will buy that. All the way to the top.
Love me a sabi bee. Holiday pour.
You were thirsty, weren't you?
And that is my 1 gallon of water for the day. Hydration is key.
Hydration is key. Billy, I'll do another.
And now I can show up for others.
What?
Can I just get a minute to myself?
Hey, Dad.
What? You're talking over the Brewer game. Don't just stand there. Get that flashlight. Ad's therapy has just begun.
All right, welcome again to Social Distillation, the submarine still of the internet, where we attempt to drop the bead and pour white lightning straight onto your brain. What are we talking about today, Samo?
Well, by that cold open, it is obvious that we are talking a little bit of cross-sex mind reading again, and this is self-care. I think you worded this perfectly last week when we were teasing this. Therapy language replacing morality.
Yes.
And as we've harped on before, don't go to Instagram for your therapy advice.
Yeah, so that jumped out at me. Greg Owens one of his latest videos is titled "The 7 Deadly Sins of Millennial Writing," and he's griping on millennials because he is one, but modern writing, because these aren't all millennials doing this crappy writing. But number 2 was that, and I was like, oh wow, that nails a lot of the stuff we're talking about. It's not just that you're getting your mental health advice from Instagram at all, but that is becoming morality. Like, no, that's problematic. We kind of touched on this when we were talking about relationships on Saturday, using Stranger Things and Wheel of Time as our fictional examples of finding yourself, and the danger of that with modernity being that when we say that too often, we mean it in the way that you have mentioned a number of times, of the debate over putting narcissism in the DSM because it is so freaking prevalent now.
Yeah, and I have it opened up to the diagnostic criteria for it, if we want to go into that here in a little bit.
Yeah, but you pointed out it is important. You know, the analogy you used was when you go on a flight, they tell you if the oxygen mask drops down, you put yours on first, because you can't be helping the person next to you if you're passed out.
Well, I think a perfect example of this is how we treat. How's my voice coming through? I'm not hearing myself very well.
You're coming fine on my end.
Okay, cool. But how the greatest example of this, and it's kind of a trope and a meme, but it's a meme and a stereotype because it's true, is look at how we treat Mother's Day versus Father's Day. You know, what did you do for Mom on Mother's Day? Did she, have her self-care, her breakfast in bed? You took the kids away so she can have time for herself. She went to the spa. All of these things are like typical Mother's Day things. You made sure she had the flowers and the cards, and maybe something nice. I have a client that runs jewelry stores, and one of her busiest times of the year is right before Mother's Day. And I don't see her for the couple weeks before Mother's Day because she's working so hard. And then when Father's Day comes around, they say, did you grill? Did you do this? Did you do that? What did you do for Father's Day? And it's like, okay, so the expectation is different, because self-care in the feminine is relaxation and bonding. Self-care in the masculine is doing something and bonding. And great source on this, I'm bringing him up before, Adam Lane Smith, the relationship expert, the attachment expert. We bond differently. We bond by doing, and they bond by, and it makes biological sense because the risk reward for females in nature is, as I've said before, you want patriarchy, let's go back to nature, is we need to take care. And on the male side, we need to do something or the tribe doesn't live.
Mhm.
So, or we need to protect, or we need to, in the masculine, be like sharks, constantly moving to keep oxygen in our gills.
And that's why I wanted to do that open with that was Charlie Barron's. He's a Wisconsin-based comedian, so he does a lot of bits on Midwesterners, and his stand-up is pretty good, but his skits on his YouTube channel are hilarious, where he really hams up the Midwestern accent and the dad energy,
Mhm.
and it yeah, he's joking, but there's also a lot of truth in that of, you know, dad's me time is checking boxes, it's getting stuff done. But then also there at the end, yeah, he's being, you know, the kind of stereotypical dad of you're talking over the Brewers game, but also bring that flashlight over here and help me. That's bonding, you know. You brought up Father's Day versus Mother's Day, and I was griping about being dragged out to brunch on Father's Day, and my wife told me, "Be quiet. You're going to brunch and you're going to like it. You got to fix your fence yesterday," which is what my Father's Day was son, come down here and help me fix this last section of fence I need to replace. So that's what we did.
Mhm.
And then we got dragged out to brunch the next day.
Hey,
Uh,
I like a good brunch. Whiskey cake is fantastic. I've never been disappointed.
yeah.
A
So
great Bloody Mary and always great food.
but that's also why when I told you I wanted to talk about this is it's not just male versus female because we don't want to get in the weeds there and why are you griping about us?
well,
No,
I'm
there is a
gonna,
masculine versus feminine there
but
because
also there's an internal versus externalization, right?
yes,
So boys in general, as we talk about growing up, are more prone to externalized personality disorders. Things like ADHD, things like ODD, which is the kind of, it's like basically they act out, or they overly act out. Uh, so they're more prone to those because we have this inner nature of being aggressive towards everything around us, right? But females are more prone to internalized things like anxiety, things like depression, because that default mode network is always bubbling up. And actually, I study meditation a lot. So in my physiology career, obviously, I've focused on exercise, right? I've focused on exercise and nutrition. That's my career. In my psychology career, I've focused on things like meditation and good mindfulness practice and stuff. And one of the things people think about, you're talking about self-care, right? The keyword self there. What people don't understand about meditation is it's actually being heightened, being more aware of the external. If you're doing a breathing exercise, you're taught to focus on how the air feels coming over the tip of your nose into your nostril. You're taught to focus on these things to eliminate thoughts that bubble up from the default mode network, which is your own internal bubbled up feelings and thoughts. Those thoughts that you can't sleep at night because you're laying in bed and you can't get the music worm out of your ear, or you can't get that thing you did yesterday out of your mind, or the thing you have to do tomorrow out of your mind. Those are all bubbling up from this default mode. And the key to meditation is actually using the external to reduce those into, because you only have so much cognitive load, to reduce the internal. So you're not making your own thoughts as much as you are being aware of your surroundings. So that's the big misunderstanding with meditation. And that's where we get this difference in masculine versus feminine self-care, is we as the masculine are hardwired to be engaged with our environments, whereas the feminine is hardwired to think ahead, be basically bubble up the negativity bias that keeps you alive in nature. And in Western society, we have very few outlets for it because I'm in here with air conditioning. I have food in my refrigerator. I don't have to go hunt. I have police that protect my house, fire department that comes if something goes wrong. We tend to make our own problems because of that.
which is one of the points that Martha Beck makes in the first part of her book when she talks about one where anxiety comes from on
Hmm.
a physiological level of your amygdala going haywire basically and then not calming down, and then why that has become so much more prevalent in our modern world where you would think, well, we have so much less to be anxious about, so why is anxiety on the rise? Well, because we don't do the things we used to do, we don't live the way we used to live, which balances out that hyper aware, anxious, worrying side versus the, you know, big picture, complete picture, okay, everything's fine now side. And and that is where you kind of need to recognize where that, we're not allowed to say it, but women
I'm going to
have
bring an
higher rates of
extreme case. I'm going to bring
neuroticism.
Yeah, I'm going to bring an extreme case here forward to kind of highlight the point because this goes back to our Helen, what's her name?
Andrews.
Helen Andrews episode where the feminization is actually heightening
Mm-hmm.
these phenomena. And this is the case of patient SM is the initials SM, and she was born with lesions in her amygdala, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
talked about that. And to explain the amygdala to people, it's a very small almond shape structure in the brain, and it's what we would consider kind of like the fear center. It's the alert. I'll say it's the alert center of the brain,
Mm-hmm.
which fear is one of the main things that keeps us alive. There's the amygdala, and I'm going to bring in here in a little bit the insula, which is we hear of an insular response. That's a disgust response. So the insula and the amygdala are key to our behavior. And she was born with lesions in her amygdala, so she actually experienced no fear. And when we talk about females, if you go through this story, I'll link this in the description. If you go through her story and read her bio, she got hurt a lot. She dated a lot of abusive men. She got mugged on very, very, very many occasions because when she walks by a dark alley, there is no response. She just, if that's the shortest distance between point A and point B, she walks down dark alley. And she had been mugged on multiple occasions. And that's because you're more likely to be a target if you're female. And she lacked the ability to make good decisions based on the fear response. So it is important, especially if you're female. The problem is when we culturally shift in that direction, we end up playing it over safe. We end up doing things, having discussions about microaggressions. We end up having discussions about words are harm, words are violence. And so that's where we come in. We're trying to shift it a little bit back so we can get to reasonable again.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what happens when that response goes away. If we have no disgust response, you're going to be poisoned within weeks because you're going to eat a rotten piece of meat and not spit it out, right?
Um, yeah, so one of the classes my daughter is taking this semester is fungal biology, and one of their projects, one of their assignments is to go out and find some mushrooms and bring them into class so that they can study and identify them. And my first thought was, you're in Texas on the coast. Where you find shrooms is usually pretty snaky.
Mm,
And you're a city slicker who has not been conditioned to know the difference between stick and snake.
hmm.
Yeah, that's a terrible assignment, Professor.
Yeah, well, and we have a negativity bias for the reason for a reason. The way I've heard it best is you can live every day of your life, but you can only die once. You can jump at every stick and feel like
Mm-hmm.
a fool, but you can not jump at the snake once.
Yeah. Yeah, well that is why people try and use the statistics of like I believe this is correct. I don't remember the exact number, but more people are killed by cattle than sharks every year, and it's not even close.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I've seen that one.
But so
Those
why
too.
does a shark provoke so much fear? Well, because a shark attack is so there's such a high potential of fatality because of the nature of the attack and the strength of that predator, that if it bites you, there's a good chance you're going to bleed out. If not, it
Can,
goes
can,
in for the kill.
can I poop on that statistic for a second there?
Yeah.
Speaking of mushrooms and cow poop and but no, there was a study probably about 15, 20 years ago. I was still in undergrad, so it was about 20 years ago that functional movement analysis was a poor predictor of injury rate because higher scores on functional movement analysis were correlated with higher injury rates. Then they thought about it for a second. The people who score higher on the functional movement analysis played more.
Mm,
So it was an exposure thing. If you're on the field for
yeah.
100 hours versus somebody who's on the field for 2 hours, you're going to have a higher injury rate because you have 98 more hours on the field. And so sharks versus cows, I think, is an exposure rate. We're terrestrial animals. We go swimming for fun.
Mhm.
So I think if you normalized for hours spent in ocean versus hours spent in prairie, it would probably be sharks that win.
Probably.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay, so sorry to poop on that, but yeah, I understand your point.
uh, Point being, there is, as you said, these emotions aren't inherently bad. They serve a purpose. It's recognize when it gets out of balance.
Hmm.
That's where, Charlie Barron's skit there is funny, but also insightful, because you can see how if you are a male, but you are more neurotic, you are prone to higher levels of neuroticism, which is, as you said, in our feminized world, is, you know, not only probable, it is you can mark it statistically. You can
Hmm.
analyze it and look at it objectively and say, yeah, more males suffer from neuroticism now than used to. Well, you have to address that slightly differently. That is where the meditation comes in. That is where the self-reflection comes in. That is where the calming that mind comes in. Then you can go start checking boxes. That thing that the masculine wants to do is get that mind calmed down, or find a way where you can do both.
Hmm.
For me, uh, working outside, working in the garden is therapeutic because it's doing both. Because I can put some earbuds in, I can listen to some music that helps me relax, I can focus on my task. I don't have to, I'm not in the moment, I am not thinking about what comes next. I'm just thinking about, let's get this bed weeded. Let's let's prep the soil here. Let's do this thing, and I'm just doing the thing, and I am focused in that moment. And also, I'm checking a box. So when I stand up and I'm done and I look back at that row of raised bed that I've just weeded, and it's nice and clean and it's ready for planting, that feels good.
Hmm.
You
Where
know,
where I would say, in our little dichotomy, I actually am more feminine. I'm a lot of times thinking about the next thing. I like mundane tasks like building a fence was fine. We talked about building a fence because
mhm,
it was repetitive. And while I was doing that, I listened to the first 12 lectures of Robert Sapolsky's Stanford behavioral biology thing. So repetitive tasks are great for me, but I like them because I can do something else at the same time. I can task switch, so to speak. Multitasking is a myth. Task switching is a thing. But yeah, I like to do activities that I'm doing the lawn. He was very focused on the lines. I just do it. As long as there's nothing sticking up at the end, I'm fine. But I'm also listening to something where I'm trying to learn while I do it. I feel like some of those activities to me are mindless, whereas you're
mhm.
talking about focusing on that task and doing it. So I do tend to be more feminine in that way. But also knowing your personality type, you said neuroticism. That's one of the big five. That's one of the big five personality traits is neuroticism. My highest by far over everything else is openness, which is why I'm an entrepreneur. Because I have to be able to think outside of the box. I have to, if I don't, I'm not saying I have to do my job right. I'm saying I have to as a person. I have to be always thinking about what can be improved upon, what can be done, not just on the task at hand. Whereas someone who's a great, we'll go to the other end of the spectrum, a great factory worker, some people need that repetitive nature. They need that control and that predictability to stay sane.
Mhm.
I go insane when everything is in a box.
Yeah, I've mentioned this before, but I have tried to do the typical where you hear about, people who made themselves, like Benjamin Franklin made himself a schedule and he stuck to his schedule. That stresses me out more than it helps me. There are
Mhm.
other people, like I have one of my family vacations are fun because one of my sisters is, we need a schedule. What are we doing? When are we doing it? And my other sister is, we're on vacation. Let's just wing it.
Mhm.
So that's
I'm
lots of
the
fun
second
during
one.
family vacations.
Yeah, I'm the
So
second one.
so rather than making myself a schedule, what I do is I make myself lists
Hmm.
of, here's what I want to accomplish. Here's when I want to accomplish. So this week, here are my tasks for the week. And I try, I'm not very good at it. I'm getting better. I try and set reasonable expectations for this week. I want to accomplish these tasks. And I literally put a check mark to have that tactile and visual reinforcement of, boom, I did a thing, good for me.
Hmm.
And I have found that that is much more helpful to me and my personality type than than actually making a schedule that I have to stick to, which is only going to heighten my stress rather than alleviate it.
Yeah. Uh, okay, so I talked about openness being my biggest one. So I'm going to do a training example here. My strength as a trainer, and one thing that actually, hello,
Hello.
hello,
There you go. You're back.
am I back? Hello, hello.
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, okay, I'm back. Okay, this cord is still very finicky, but okay. So back to my strength as a trainer, which I found very hard to replicate with other coaches, is that high openness, that adaptability. Someone can walk in my door, and I'm going to say it's something that actually happened. Someone can walk in my door missing a leg, and I can go ahead and make the best out of that situation. And which again, that has actually happened in my training career. And I'm still getting a message that my microphone is. Are we here?
I can hear you just fine.
Okay, so hopefully this is coming through. If you just have my mouth moving, I'm sorry. But I can hear myself now again. So okay, so but I have literally had somebody blow off their leg and come in and be like, I need this mentally. I know I'm not ready physically, but I need this mentally. And I'm like, oh, we'll make the best out of it. I've had someone have their arm, the humerus, go into their armpit in a training accident when they were at school, and I trained the person for the next lacrosse season while they were in that recovery phase. I've seen it all, and I'm adaptable. Somebody can come in and just say, I had a bad day, and I can change everything like that to accommodate their day. To I always say, when you walk through my door, the only rule is do the best you can. Do the
Hmm.
best you can, and we'll make it work. And you've had me work on your furniture with my inverse Polish notation. You said this furniture is broken, traditional methods aren't working. Can you make this chair functional again? And I did, right?
Yep.
And I did. So that is my biggest strength. Now we talk about maybe my environment isn't being the head strength coach for a college team, because you have to have an organized system that 100 kids can have their sheets and their workout programs and everything right there for them, and their progression models. This is the percentage you're going to do today. This is the percentage you're going to do tomorrow. This is the percentage. That's not my strength because my organizational skills aren't as good. My conscientiousness is right in the 40s to right about 50. It's not horrible, but it's not my strongest thing. My weakest is what you wouldn't get because you're listening to me on the internet right now talking into a microphone, is extroversion. I think I scored like a 25 on that. I am at the bottom of the barrel of extroversion. That doesn't mean you can't talk to people. People misunderstand about extroversion and introversion. This is okay, back to internet psychology. I'm so introverted, I don't like people, right? No, that's not what introverted in being introverted is. It's how your energy and how you renew, right? So extroversion, I can talk to people. I do it all day long. I'm toast. I'm toast by the end of it, and I need alone time, meditation, just watching TV, reading a book. If I play a video game, you know that I hate that everything is online now. If I play a video game, I want to be alone. I want to be alone with the video game, and that's my me time. If I'm gardening, yeah, I want to learn something like I just talked about earlier, but I don't want anybody to talk to me. I just want to be with my audiobook or my podcast and my garden and maybe my dog. The dogs I give exceptions for the dogs. The dogs. So that proves my point from the other day is because there's no energy to expend on having a dog. It is a rejuvenating experience. That's why selfish people think dogs are more important. But I love my dogs. And so but okay, so back to training. A lot of extroversion would have made my business a lot more successful. If I could be that guy on Instagram with a camera in my face all the time, or if I could be at every health fair pimping my health spa, my health studio out, if I could have hell just done a better job of putting a Facebook ad out every once in a while, I would have been much more successful. So openness and extroversion are two predictors of success. And I'm great at one, I'm horrible at the other. So yeah, you wanted to go into all five, right?
Mhm.
So openness is your basically capacity for new experience. You try new foods. You're willing to go to new locations. You're willing to try different versions of something else. Uh name something that gets routine.
Well, you brought up food. How easy is it to get in a food rut? And you're like, what do I want to cook? What do I want to eat? What do I want to just, it can be very, uh, uh, to reuse your word, rejuvenating if you suddenly try something new.
Hmm.
Um, but it can also, if you're not that kind of person, like you and I, as much as we like food and like trying new things, that we could eat sausage and eggs for every meal and we'd be just fine,
No, I
right?
wouldn't.
But
I wouldn't.
well,
Uh,
for a long time,
mhm.
we could. I mean, when we
But
were
you
broke
you
college students, it was pretty close to
well, that
that.
was more the broke than anything
That was
else.
more the broke than
Well, in
anything.
fact, I lost 80 pounds because I was so broke I was eating the same thing every day. And when you do that, you start only eating when you're
Exactly.
hungry. Uh,
Exactly. But if you
but
get into
me
that,
and your wife get along
yeah,
probably mostly over food because she likes to say, "Hey, did you try this? Did you try that?" And I'm like, "Oh, give me some," you know.
yeah, she found a Viet place and we went to and I was like, no, that's too weird for me. Y'all try that. I'm gonna stick with this.
Well, and even when it comes to the spicy food, it's like this one's going to be really bad. And I'm like, I wonder if I can take it. You know, I wonder if I can jump off that higher cliff into the lake. I wonder if I can do this. I wonder if I can go out in front of 5,000 people in Monterrey, Mexico and fight this kickboxer. Those are the kind of things that yeah, I'm introverted and I'm in my little hidey hole a lot, but when I go out, I go big.
Hmm.
I mean, we're doing business stuff right now, and I'm probably annoying you with how gung ho I am in trying to get this thing rolling and trying to get it get it humming. And
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm like giddy with it. So it's like, yeah, I recharge in my little hole, but when I come out, I'm not the freaking groundhog saying 6 more weeks of winter. I come out and I be like, sunshine, let's go. And
Which and the balancing act with something like openness is you don't want to go off on a bender and let's go have some fun at the casino and the next thing you know you're broke,
hmm
but you also don't want to just stay in your room all the time.
hmm
Right.
Now,
So if you're
yeah.
on one extreme or the other, you've got to find ways to kind of pull yourself back or push yourself forward, whichever you need if you're on one extreme or the other. And for something like openness, I brought up food because that could be relatively simple is okay, you need to break out of this rut. You need to try something new. What is a a dish or a type of cuisine or whatever that you've never tried, and okay, look at some Yelp reviews and go out or watch some YouTube videos. If you're like us and you actually like to cook for yourself, then you know I was watching Jacques Pepin, who's a
I
an
love
old
him.
French guy
I
who's been
love
around
him. Yeah.
forever. He was on PBS a lot with uh oh gosh, I just brain farted on her name. She's like the classic, the woman who basically brought classic French cuisine and popularized it in America. And I just completely brain farted on her name. But he was with her a lot because I want to make something fancy for my wife to surprise her when she gets home because it's been a rough week full of work nonsense. So it wasn't that hard to, well, let me go find this thing. Okay, I've never made this thing before. Let me try it. Now that's not that hard for me because I like
But
doing those kinds of things.
But
But
if you go
if you're
too
not,
extreme, yeah, if you go too extreme and you're eating chilled monkey brains like in Indiana Jones, you can get a prion and have a virus that
yep,
the old mad cow disease, right? So if you go too open with your food, you're going to eat things that could be harmful. If you're too open with your lifestyle, you could get an STD, right? If you're too open with your lifestyle, you might lose your partner. If you're too open with experience, you might do something that you lose your job. All of these things, entrepreneurship. It's great if you have that personality, but it's hella risky. That 9 to 5 job in the factory, it's there every day.
yeah,
If you're going out and trying to make your own money as your own boss, at least for a long time, you don't know if you're going to get paid tomorrow. The people who you pay bills to want to get paid every day, but you don't know if you're going to get paid tomorrow. If you got a client list and you get sick, you're not getting paid for the time you're sick. That kind of thing. So openness is great for new experience. It is horrible for risk.
mm,
If you're not open enough, you never experience anything and you get caught in ruts and leads to depression a lot, that kind of thing. But also you tend to play it safe. You play it safe with you're the factory worker.
yep.
You're the this job is hiring no matter what kind of thing. You're
Well, we talk about relationships a lot, and a while back we watched and talked about the Korean dating show Better Late Than Single that was specifically targeted towards people who had never been in a relationship at all, or at least had never gotten never gotten that second date, right? And my wife's gripe about the show is that for most of the females, their problem was they just hadn't bothered to put themselves out there.
Mhm.
Like the guys had some serious
They were all
personality
they
issues
were
they had to work on.
they were all women I would approach in a bar, as far
Exactly.
as their looks, and it's like, but at the same time, they gave off an air of unapproachability.
And they clearly weren't happy with that, or they wouldn't have gone on this show in the first place. They wouldn't have put themselves out there, but they
I'm
finally
still
reached the
happy for
point
the
of
couple
putting
that ended
themselves
up
out
being
there.
being the
Well,
she was my favorite
mhm.
because she seemed the most genuine of all of them. But
And the super Tismy guy that we were rooting for he didn't end up with anyone from the show, but my wife looked up later to see how things turned out and found out that he had found someone outside of the show and had been dating for 3 months at the time she looked it up. And I was like, wow, look what happens
good
when you leave your room.
good for him. So we'll go in order because the acronym is OCEAN. Okay, so if
Okay.
you want the big five, OCEAN. I like Hexaco because they added honesty to
Mm,
it and honesty and humility to it. I'll go into that at the end as a sidebar. But the C is conscientiousness. Okay, so we talked about where openness can be good and bad. And being aware of that is the process. So I know I'm super open. So I have to check myself. Are you making a good decision today, Sam? That kind of thing. Conscientiousness is actually where that comes in because it's how organized you are. It's how aware you are of the structure of life realistically. How good you are at structuring life.
mhm.
Like you want a conscientious person building your house, right? You want a conscientious person doing your taxes. You want a conscientious person handling the structure of life. You want a conscientious person as the health secretary of your country, right? You want a conscientious person as the CFO of your company, the chief financial officer of your company. But if you're overly conscientious, as we talked about, if things change, if life happens and it doesn't work according to plan, you go crazy.
Mm.
Because okay, I have this at 10:15, I have this at 10:30, I have this at 11, I have this and it rains and your 10:15 is 5 minutes late. You go absolutely batshit crazy if you're overly conscientious. But if you're too loose, you can't make that plan to begin with.
Mm.
You're incapable of organizing your life. I tend to score lower on conscientious, not super low, but low enough that I really have to, okay, Sam, set an alarm for this. That way you know you're going to stay on schedule. And it is nice, even though I have clients all over the place, to have them like these are my Monday, Wednesday, Friday clients. These are my Tuesday, Thursday clients. These are my 4 day a week clients. It is nice to have that with as little fluctuation, even though I'm good at adapting to it. So it does make life easier when you're conscientious. It makes the things that you do, I'll speak as an entrepreneur again, it makes the things that you do more successful when you have it a little bit more organized, especially if you're trying to duplicate yourself. So I'm a little low on that. So I've always had trouble duplicating myself and I've always had trouble delegating because when you delegate, you have to make sure you've taught them to do the job they need to do. And that takes conscientiousness.
If you want to get, if you have trouble with that and you want to get better at it, coach youth sports. Because I mean, there's literally nothing you can do. You coach them up and then they've got to go play. And
Mhm.
that is the hardest thing. And I was very low in that. I still am very low in that. I procrastinate way too much. But something that was very painful but necessary was when my kids were younger, I coached or helped coach all of the sports teams that they were on, until they got to the point where they were doing things that I'd never done. I was like, I don't know what to do here. But that that was the hardest part because I was an above average athlete in my youth. And it was hard for me to, one, teach, but then two, why can't you do the thing? Well, because they're not you.
Mhm.
Okay. They've got to figure it out for themselves and reach that point for themselves. And then you've got to go back the next practice and keep going.
Okay. So that's conscientiousness. E. Now we're on extroversion. Ocean, right? Extroversion, we touched on it, but the misconception here is where you get your energy. Is it
Mm,
from me time or is it from uh being outgoing? And some people are great at this. Like I'm actually good in a social situation. I'm really good in a social situation. It wears the hell out of me. When I was a coach at Velocity Sports Performance and then Excel, everybody kept putting me in the kids classes because I was good with them.
mhm.
And I'm like, you know how much this wears me out. If you've ever worked with 12-year-olds in an athletic class, it wears anybody out, but it wore me out from a
Yeah.
social standpoint as well, because you can't help but be social with kids. Kids say the darndest thing was the show, right? You have to be super social with the kids. Now that's an advantage. Again, we're going advantage, disadvantage. That's an advantage if you want to pimp yourself out, if you want to sell yourself. Salesman, you need to be high in extroversion. If you are in sales, your best marketers, you have to be comfortable with the spotlight on you. The other end of the spectrum is okay, you're the behind the scenes person, right? It doesn't mean you're not good in social situations. It's just that it's not the best place for you because you're going to be worn out, and so you have to pick your skill sets with that. Agreeableness.
Well, hold on.
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
So with extroverts, because I think it is so confused, is um
Well, extroversion to the extreme can be narcissism, as we've
yes,
talked about. To the extreme can be narcissism, but also on the other extreme can be narcissism because you're only thinking about yourself.
it's not about the social interaction, it's about the spotlight being on you.
Hmm.
That's what you
It's
want.
it's the comfort level. Anytime you're
Exactly.
uncomfortable, you're going to be drained.
So
If you're
um
too cold, you're going to be more tired than if it was just the right temperature. If you're too hot, you're going to be more tired than if it was just the right temperature. Your hypothalamus is the regulatory center of your brain. And anytime you're outside of that, it's like the temperature, the thermostat of your brain. Anytime you're outside of the proper range, your body is going to be stressed. And now we're talking stress. So if I'm being open beyond my openness limit, my body's going to be stressed. If I'm being agreeable beyond my agreeableness limit, my body's going to be stressed. Same with extroversion. And now the two extremes of extroversion are narcissism. Because if you're too introverted, you're only thinking about you all the time. If you're too extroverted, you have that grandiose narcissism where you have to have attention all the time. So somewhere in the middle is good there. I tend to be towards the bottom end, and realistically, I have had the constructive criticism that sometimes I do withdraw too much for social interaction to be respectful to somebody, right? It's like the cat, the cat that comes around only when it wants to be pet. Sometimes I can get in that mode, and I'm aware of it, and I try to work on it. I'm not perfect at it, so we're gonna keep working on it.
So, me and my wife both score low in extroversion, but I'm much lower than her. And, um,
See,
and so I've talked about how I needed to create, in order to approach people when I was trying to sell myself, when I was trying to sell myself as a trainer, I had to create an outline that worked for me, but then also in talking to you and talking to my wife about how to approach other people would leave them open,
mhm.
and so it wouldn't be a hard sell. It was a way to approach. I had to work on that a lot. It's a little easier for my wife, and sometimes when they do like team building, non-work things where they're just talking about life and whatnot, they'll talk about personality tests. And every time they do this, anyone who hasn't seen one of these before is always shocked that my wife scores really low in extroversion and that she's an I in when you take
The Myers-Briggs, yeah.
Myers-Briggs personality test. And she's like, yeah, I can do the meetings. I can even run the meetings. I can give the presentation. And then I go home and crawl in bed with my cat and doom scroll on my phone
Hmm.
because that's how I need to recharge. But then she still goes out to work the next day.
Hmm. Yeah,
Because
you just brought up a quick little aside in there in the doom scrolling. This is something that muddies the water a little bit because doom scrolling is so addictive that I think it's leading people to believe they're more introverted than they are because that self time becomes mindless time, becomes addicted time. And anytime you have an addiction, you're going to change your life around that. So I do want to say that muddies the water a little bit, but at the same time, curling up in bed with your cat is
I'm about to go off on a rant on that here in a second because I'm going to talk about the idiot box in our pocket
well,
with
let
A.
me get through the ocean first then.
Yeah.
Okay, so
No, but I
A,
think this affects A.
okay, so agreeableness.
Mhm.
Now this is the one where I like Hexaco. So maybe I should have saved this one last, but I wanted to go in order. So again, put a pin in that because agreeableness is your aversion to conflict. If you're high in agreeableness, you're on the one extreme, you're the doormat. You're the one everybody walks all over. On the other extreme, if you're low in agreeableness, you're the person that is always the devil's advocate. You're always the person that's fighting back. So disagreeableness is actually good in some professions and agreeableness is good in others. I work with people in a way that I have to be extremely empathetic with them constantly, and whether that's in mental therapy or in physical training, I have to be very, very, very empathetic to get the proper result with that. And I'm also that's my second highest score is agreeableness.
And
So,
that's the word I have seen probably most often associated with agreeableness in defining it is empathy.
mhm.
Um, but I've also um, uh, working with others. So there's a difference there, but again, this is where it gets the
Nurses
Instagram
need to be
pop
high.
psychology.
Nurses
Exactly.
need to be high in
The
agreeableness, right?
Instagram pop psychology muddies the water and conflates extroversion and agreeableness. Just because you're one doesn't mean you're the other. You
Hmm.
can get along with other people that's agreeableness. That's not the same as, again, your energy and how you recharge your batteries is the
Yeah.
extroversion
Someone
part.
like a lawyer would need to be very low in agreeableness because their job is to argue and debate.
Hmm.
Someone like a CEO probably needs to be low in agreeableness because they have to hire and fire people, right? I'm in a hiring process right now. I have to check my agreeableness at the door because what did I tell you yesterday? I want to hire all of them.
Hmm.
I've narrowed it down to five and I need to get to three, but I want to hire all of them because they were all very great. Maybe the exception of one or two people. I've had 20 interviews and I got to get to three or four. But they were all qualified. They all had different strengths. And I'm like, oh, I could use this person in this way and I can use this person in this way, but that's too many people. So one of my highest scores is agreeableness, which is bad for hiring and firing. So I have to check that at the door uh, within this day because I have to make the decision tonight. But it's on the other end, if you're disagreeable with everything, you're an asshole.
Uh-huh.
You're an asshole to everybody. And so, but yeah, that's a good trait if you're a surgeon or a lawyer or the person who does the hiring and firing, like the guy from the 90s, what they called him the chainsaw. They would come in and pay him a couple $1 million to save many millions of dollars by just firing people. What is the guy that does the bartender show where he watches the security cams and gives
Oh
advice?
yeah, I can't remember, but yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah, it's like bar rescue or something like that.
yeah, or even the why am I blanking on his name? Blonde-haired chef,
Ramsey, Gordon Ramsay.
Gordon Ramsay.
Would go into restaurants and
You
do
know,
that. Yeah.
you're an idiot sandwich. That kind of stuff. That's high disagreeable. Now I heard in personal life he's actually a great person, but that's hearsay.
Hmm.
But if you're super high, you're good at jobs. Again, I brought up nursing, things where you have to put yourself in the place of the person. Now you still have to check that at the door because take our job for instance, training. You have to tell people things they don't want to hear a lot. You know what? You're trying to lose 50 pounds. You can't have that 24 pack of Bud Light every day. Maybe you can have a 12 pack, but you have to still tell them, no, you can't do this. Chocolate cake out the window for now. You got to, you know what? Pick up that weight that I put in front of you because you're being lazy. You have to be a little bit of disagreeable. So for my job, I have to check that at the door and actually figure out how to do it. But also, I've developed a client base based on my strengths that are actually, I call it the Isle of Broken Toys from the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer
Hmm.
show, where, I work with people that have psychological issues. I work with people who have been injured in the past. So it plays to my strength of having that empathy and again, that feminine. I do have a lot of feminine qualities. The most masculine one I have is the protectiveness. But when it comes to that empathy and compassion, I tend to be more feminine than most guys. And I played to that, and it took me a while to build a client base, but it works. So this is an importance of knowing your personality traits, right? Because now you can use it to your advantage. That's agreeableness. Final thoughts on agreeableness before I go to
So
in.
so you talked about where you can have too much. If you don't have enough or think you're losing it, it, it occurred to me a couple weeks ago we talked about screen time and diminishing IQ, which is, you brought up a bunch of studies like just right off the top of your head of, oh yeah, this is definitely a thing. And
Mhm.
we have been looking at this for a little while now. And the last couple of weeks, I have been noticing more and more something which I think is diminishing our agreeableness culturally on the macro level, and it's the idiot box in our pocket. I have been noticing more and more people FaceTiming in public, listening to something without earbuds in, talking on the phone, even on speakerphone, or the thing that really triggered me the other day is I almost ran into someone because they had just stopped. Now, it wasn't in the middle of the road, it wasn't a parking lot, but it was in the through lane of the parking lot rather than parking in a parking spot. They had just stopped. And as I passed them, I could tell, oh, had stopped because they were fiddling on their freaking phone. And I think having this in your pocket all the time is diminishing our agreeableness, because something Jordan Peterson talks about a lot when it comes to childhood development is the give and take of free play and how necessary that is, because that's going to form the foundation for all of your social interactions going forward through your life as those social interactions become more complicated. And if you're only ever looking at a screen, or if you're looking at it way too much and that's how you're interacting with the world, then you're not picking up on those cues that are letting you know, hey, you're being an a-hole.
Mm-hmm.
You are not being agreeable because you're never looking at another human being. You're never interacting, or you are rarely interacting with another human being on a personal level.
Put a pin in that because I'm going to expand on it with the
Okay.
difference between Big Five and Hexaco.
Mhm.
Because agreeableness is the one it really shows up on. But let's get through neuroticism first, which we talked about already. Is it's the propensity to negative emotion.
Mhm.
So if you're highly neurotic, you're highly anxious, you're always you're putting you have that negative spin on everything, which in the extreme is anxiety. In a healthy amount is protection.
Mhm.
So I mean, if you're in the savannah, alone with no tribe around you or anything, it might be good to stay away from the rustling high grass, right? Because that could be a lion, right? If you're in a dark alley, our patient
SM, yeah.
SM, if you see a dark alley, you need that amygdala to fire up and say, "Don't go down that dark alley." And you brought up snakes and sticks earlier. Your vision goes through your amygdala before it gets to your visual cortex is back here. Your amygdala is here. It actually makes us stop here. If you ever go blind unnaturally, like someone pokes out your eyes or something, hopefully that never happens to anybody that's listening to this. But if you ever go blind from chemicals in your eyes or something, and you get scared all of a sudden, stop. Because you actually have a visual center here that is not the same as here. And you will, that's why we jump back so fast. You don't even have time to think about it. You don't see the snake before you start jumping. Cats are great at this. Cats reaction time is like 200ths of a second. And that's why they're so good against things like snakes and stuff, is because their reaction time is faster than thinking. We take that 300ths to 400ths of a second to think about something. That's why there's a computer that can beat you at rock, paper, scissors every time, because it processes what you're doing in 200ths of a second and puts the opposite forward. And your brain can't register that it did that because it's too fast for your mind. Now, there's a center in there that it goes through, and that's your amygdala. And if your amygdala is overactive, and I went through this in detail when we talked critical social justice, because we're training our young minority kids to have more reactive amygdala in stressful situations by teaching them about microaggressions and social justice and everything. So that center of your brain is kind of the hub for that neuroticism. And it's lizard brain. It's something that if it happens, even if you cognitively think about the situation, you're still going to have symptoms of a panic attack. So your heart rate's going to increase, your sympathetic nervous system's going to ramp up, you might start sweating. So you're going to have a physical stressor. Again, stress is the key. When you're too far one way or the other, stress happens to your body. Now, if you're the other end of neuroticism and you're just not neurotic at all, you're SM. You walk right into that danger. You step on that nail. You pick up the snake going, huh? Steve Irwin was not very neurotic.
Mhm.
He was not very neurotic at all. And he died. The guy who was the bear hugger guy,
Mhm.
no neuroticism when it came to wild animals. And he died a horrible death. That's the other end of it. We need, again, a balance. We need to be neurotic enough to survive, but not so much that we are just being physically wrecked by anxiety.
Mhm. Yeah, and just real quick on that, I cannot recommend Martha Beck's book, Beyond Anxiety, enough.
Mhm.
I'm about to buy my third copy of it because I had one for myself. I bought one and sent it to my brother. And when my daughter leaves for after spring break, I'm going to give her my copy and I'm going to order another copy for myself because it's that good. As far as not just in explaining, but then giving
Action
practical
plans. Yeah.
methods that you can use for that.
Yeah. So, I'm going to buy me a copy of that one too. Uh, So that's Ocean. That's the big five. The big five is the most replicable. You brought up Myers-Briggs.
Mhm.
It replicates about 14 to 20% of the time, depending on the study. You see, I've taken it 3 times and I've gotten slightly different answers each time. I'll bring up a Myers-Briggs here. I got the picture. So the Myers-Briggs is 16 different ones. That's when you hear somebody, a lot of corporate you brought up
Yep.
your wife
Yep.
and stuff. They do it. The INTJ. Uh, I is introversion. N is neuroticism, I think. T is I can't remember them all, but they're
Thinking, I
they're
thinking,
four
I think
different.
is what they,
Yeah, thinking.
yeah.
Yeah, they're four different spectrums of personality, and they both have 2 letters for each. So I and E, introversion, extroversion. N and S. What was N and S? But T was thinking.
Hmm.
J was judgment. J is judgment. So if you're like fair, is the word judgment was what it was.
Yeah.
P was protective or judgment. So one person is fair, the other one is always erring in the side of protection.
Oh, I
So
believe F is feeling. That's T is
feeling and
thinking,
thinking.
F is
Yeah,
feeling.
yeah. I can't remember what N and S are.
So usually when my wife and I take this test, we're the same except she's an F and I'm a T.
I
And
always score
otherwise we're
I,
about the
but the
same.
other ones are the ones that varied.
Hmm.
I always score P too. I'm always in the protective. So those were consistent with me, but other than that, it's not been, and it's not as replicable. I think the numbers I saw was 14 to 20% replicable. Big Five is replicable. It's the most solid one.
Hmm.
Hexaco is the new one on the market. And what they did, because they found Big Five actually didn't replicate cross-culturally as
Hmm.
well to like Eastern cultures and Middle Eastern cultures and stuff. And what they found was there was another variable to it. And this is why it is important for agreeableness because this is where it has the most effect. They add honesty and humility. So they add an H to it. Honesty and humility. And what they found, and again, back to not bashing the feminine, but masculine and feminine, is males, scored pretty much the same as their big five. In females, in a large percentage of females, agreeableness went way down when you included honesty. It's the bless your heart effect.
Mm.
And if you're not from the South, if you're not from Texas or the South of the US, bless your heart is the Southern FU.
Yeah.
It is saying one thing, but you really mean the other. And so what we found was a lot of agreeableness. What we found, the psychological community found, was that a lot of agreeableness was dishonest. The doormat syndrome leads to resentment. That's why it's so important.
Hmm.
If you're agreeable and you're naturally agreeable, and it actually helps you function, just like we talked about the extroversion versus introversion, then you would score the same. And you would be perfectly fine being agreeable. I'm the guy, if you say, hey, what are we going to do on this vacation on the river? And I'm like, I'm just going to float along and you make the plans. That's honest because that's the way I am. But if you say that, but you don't mean it, that down the road leads to resentment. And that's why I like Hexaco because it actually parses that out and you can make a lot of predictions based on that. How many of the I'm just not happy anymore marriage ending situations are because resentment kicked in because you agreed and 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 finally you just couldn't take it anymore. How many fights break out between two people? Fist fights with men because you agreed, and then there was no gratitude on the other side. And you just said, F you, dude, I'm going to punch you in the mouth. And that's where I think it's the most important. And I like Hexaco because of that, because it parses that out. And agreeableness can be really tricky. Do you always agree or do you always mean it?
I I had to bring up the idiot box in my pocket again and rant about it a little bit because this is a good example of where this online interaction versus human interaction rears its ugly head again because in a healthy social interaction there should be a natural give and take. So it isn't just one side agreeing all the time. So for instance, last time I went down there, um, I came down Thursday night because your Friday afternoons had cleared up, the weather looked good, and we were going to go fishing. You had just gotten over being sick. You hardly got any sleep. You just crashed Friday afternoon, and we didn't go anywhere. I didn't get bent out of shape about it because crap happens,
Mhm.
and you know
That
sometimes
was
the
a
crap
bad
is
one too.
yeah,
Yeah.
and sometimes the crap is on my side. It's like my neck pain flared up. I got to lay in bed for a couple of hours. We can't do anything yet, and so you're stuck doing yard work while I'm trying to get feeling better so we can actually go do something fun. There's a give and a take in a healthy relationship of any sort, whether you're talking about a romantic relationship or a friendship or a family or a working relationship. If you have a healthy dose of honesty and agreeableness, then you should naturally give and take
Hmm.
of,
I'll give a good
you know what?
example. Just think
Yeah.
of your workplace. So we'll take out relationships out of it. Think of your workplace. Honesty is the key here because things are forgivable when they're honest, right? And say you call in work sick and your manager goes to a happy hour after work and you're at the happy hour.
Hmm.
How would you feel as the manager? You would be very, very, very upset because that person that called in sick is at happy hour. I'm not mad at myself for being at happy hour because I was at work all day. And so the honesty is the key. I would forgive you for missing work, for being sick.
Mhm.
But then all of that forgiveness goes out the door when I see you at the happy hour.
Yeah.
It's just that so the honesty is the key. We forgive real life. If you're a reasonable person, you
Mhm.
forgive real life. That's uh, one of my themes. Again, do the best you can when you walk in. I forgive that it's not your best day as my client. But if you come in there and halfway through, I realize that you're just being lazy, I'm gonna get double hard on you. That's just the thing. It's not my ego. It's not any of that. It's just like, you know what? I have evidence right here in front of me that you're just being lazy right now. If you cancel a session on me and it's a legitimate reason, I'm not going to charge you. But if I find out you just woke up not wanting to come in and you canceled last minute, I'm really going to want to charge you.
Yeah.
That's we forgive when there's honesty, and that's why I really love that honesty was and humility was put in the. I think gratitude goes into that too.
Mhm.
If someone shows you gratitude for the sacrifice you made for them, you're more likely to make sacrifices for that person.
There's a good something that needs practice when we're talking about helping with these personality traits is I think we have gotten to the point socially, you know, because individually it's become a problem. We have to, you may have heard the term practice gratitude. That's something we actually have to practice now.
Every
And
personality trait you have to practice.
yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
'Cause I
Um,
just said I had to work on my introversion for business. I have to work on my agreeableness for interviews. Okay, this is a good place to put this in there. Your personality traits are about 50% heritable, approximately. So what that says, if you were born right there in the middle, you could be 25% to 75%, right? If you did it on a 100-point scale. If I was born at 75, I could be 100 or 50. And so everything is heritable, but also it's a nature nurture. You were born with it, but also you can adapt it. And you brought up Martha Beck's work. She has actionable plans to increase those personality, the anxieties, which we call neuroticism, right?
mhm.
So to increase your ability to handle your neuroticism, which means you actually shift that score. And it's harder to do the older you get. but at the same time, uh, it can be worked on. That's the silver lining to all this. Everything can be worked on. If I'm weak, I can lift weights. If I have a mental weakness, I can do whatever practice helps me with that. Meditation is an example. If you have anxiety, uh, forcing myself to sit down and make schedules for myself helps with my conscientiousness. Uh, Going out and interacting with people will help with your extroversion. Do an improv class or something. Get out in front of people and speak. It blows me away how many kids cannot speak in class anymore. When they get up for
Oh
their,
gosh, yes.
yeah. I am an introvert by nature, and I give the best speeches in the class every time. I give the best presentations every time. But I take my time to put it together correctly and do my homework on the subject material I'm going over until I'm confident enough in my ability to do it that is out of the equation when I stand up in front of a bunch of people, which is not comfortable for me. This has helped though. I want to say this podcast has helped.
Yeah.
It's-
Yeah, certainly, especially when we do episodes like this, certainly helps me keep my craziness in check. Um, it's so to your point about learning versus heritability, Martha Beck gives a very personal example of this in the book. And she's not exactly sure why this happens, but you know, because of her past and her own physical and mental health problems, she gets really, really, really stressed out with medical testing. And she reached the age where she had to go in for regular mammograms. And as a PhD in scientist, she knows how important that is. She knows there's no harm in this machine. She knows, and yet she would literally pass out in the machine. That is how bad it was until she
Mhm.
started working on some of these techniques. And she said now it never really went away. She could feel that in the back of her mind there, that nervousness, that energy that felt like it wanted to build into a full-blown panic attack, but she was able to develop these various techniques to where now she doesn't like it. She still feels nervous, but she can stand in it. She doesn't lose her breath. She doesn't pass out. She gets through it,
Yeah, I'll give a
which is
personal
important.
I'll give a personal example of that is uh of all the heart issues I've had in my life that I was born with, high blood pressure has never been one. It's actually low. It's typically low because the valve doesn't close all the way, so it can only create so much pressure at any given time. One time I was under the weather when I went to the first time I went to my PCP, primary care physician, and the nurse there took my blood pressure and it was like through the roof. I mean, like, through the roof. It was like 209 over something,
Oh,
which is like you're doing a deadlift blood pressure,
mhm.
you know? And to this day, probably a year and a half into this process, I always have high blood pressure when she takes my blood pressure. And I have low blood pressure everywhere else I go. If I go to the dentist, they do your blood pressure now, it's low. If I go to my hormone doctor, it's low. If I That one person doing my blood pressure is high every time. And I have meditated before going back in their office. I have shown up 30 minutes early so I can do breathing exercises. So I'm not just have walked up the stairs and everything. And I still have high blood pressure every time she does my blood pressure. That's how physiologically you get affected by your mental state. And by the way, high blood pressure is not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Much like that chronic low-grade inflammation we talked about when we talked about how being overweight isn't good. So it's
Hmm.
similar effect. All right. Well, that gets us through the personality types, and hopefully that has helped, because again, the point of today was self-care, finding yourself. These are important ideas that have become corrupted being used as buzzwords to cover up, frankly, narcissism
Hmm.
of I just want it to be about I need some me time. Okay, well, do you need me time because you need to recharge those batteries? Do you need me time because you know you've had people come back to a training analogy, you need to get healthy because you can't play with your kids. You need to be healthy because now you have grandkids and you want to be around for them, you know, or you just want to flex in the mirror, right?
Yeah. And on the flip side of that is this is destroying us mentally because it is creating an environment where we are so selfish with our time that we're not functioning as employees, we're not functioning as friends, we're not functioning for our own health. Because if you want to break the worst psychopath in the world, put him in solitary,
Mm,
right? So
yeah.
that we need belonging. This is what the social psychs have perfectly correct. We need belonging to other people. It may not be in the same dose for each other. It might not even be in the same form with each other. I need physical touch. I need someone to hold my hand. I need a friend who's gonna like put his hand on my shoulder when I'm down, right? I need that. Some people might just need words. They just might need to sit and talk. They might need to vent a little bit. That kind of thing. Venting doesn't do a whole lot for me. I do it every once in a while, but it actually, sometimes I just go, the only thing it ever does for me sometimes is, oh, that sounded worse out loud than it did in your head, that kind of thing. So sometimes it helps me make a better decision, but other than that, it's not a comforting thing for me. But if someone just quietly just puts their hand on my shoulder, that does a lot for me. And that might not be you, but it always requires another person. Just knowing you have a place in society is something everybody needs. The opposite of that is nihilism, right? That nothing matters. I don't matter. That leads to suicide. So we need people. Again, even the worst psychopath needs people because that's the one way to torture them is take them away from it.
Well, I'm glad we have this people time. I wish it could be in person. For those of you who comment and are liked and subscribed and listen to us. Maybe one of these days we will be big enough we can do meetups like the cool kids do.
Hmm.
Um, because it is important. And in the meantime, find that where you are. However that may be. I mean, the one good thing about the idiot box in our pocket is it does make it so much easier to connect with shared interest. Okay, cool. Now go out and do the thing. Now go
Go
out and
to,
actually get with those people.
put aside $15 and go out to eat. Talk to the waiter, or waitress. Engage with them, not just order.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I was bored today, so that's why I'm here.
Yeah,
How's your day going?
and
There's
and
your pickup line right there. That's
and mean
it.
it. No,
And
well,
mean it. Yeah.
that's the big one. Is you can tell when someone says how you doing, and it's just like a formality. They don't really
Mhm.
mean it. It's like it's another way of saying hi.
Yeah,
You know.
if you're an adult, sit at the bar. The bartenders, they gravitate to that profession because that is part of the job.
Mm.
Uh, it's the same for personal trainers, hairdressers, the people that spend a long time with someone individually, that gravitates to a personality that is going to be receptive to conversation. And it's that mix of extroversion and agreeableness and everything. Again, my style is more listening, which is the more agreeable version of that. But some people are just great conversationalists, and they can talk to anybody and go sit in their spot.
Yep.
Go sit in their spot. Just have human interaction. Volunteer somewhere. Go to the food bank. I'm resisting trying to I don't know if I'm going to succeed resisting the urge to have another dog here. And I'm going to work on Heath. He can have there's five of them. Mom died in childbirth,
Oh,
and Yeah, they're Weimaraner Doberman mixes. So they're
Oh,
gonna
cool.
they're gonna be big dogs. And one of them has that blue coloring, but the gold of the Doberman
Mhm.
under here, and that's the one I want. Oh God. I'm, oh,
You're gonna get another dog.
I'm in an, yeah, I'm gonna
It's
end up
gonna
with another
happen.
dog.
It's just
Ah,
all right. Well, speaking of things going off the rails, next time we're gonna talk about when this kind of stuff really goes off the rails because there's something that has recently come to my attention that made me go, what the heck is even this? Because we have talked about um the mental personality social side of this faux masculinity, this legitimately toxic masculinity of the Andrew Tates of the world. Well, there's a physical part of it that I hadn't realized was going on where guys are literally smashing their own bones to resculpt their face. And it's weird and creepy. There's this
this is new to me. You're
there
gonna have
there
to
is
send me
this
some links.
there's this weird movement of high kind of so-called hypermasculinity that is really just a different kind of body dysmorphia. And that really isn't that different because you see this with a lot of bodybuilders or wannabe bodybuilders where they go to extreme lengths and it becomes a kind of body dysmorphia.
Is it their jawline, or
It's the cheekbones and the jaw,
you know
especially.
you
Yeah.
can get a jawserciser or
Yeah.
just eat a lot of beef jerky. It will
Yeah.
change the shape of your jaw.
Yeah.
Uh, but okay, no, I have heard of the guys that have been getting the bone implants in their shins
Hmm.
to be taller. But I've never heard of the breaking the bones in your face. I guess I have a rabbit hole. I have to focus on this work stuff. Oh, go to our Real Fitness. I'm gonna link it again because you can't find it just by searching it because we're too small. But go to Real Fitness. We're rolling out mobile trainers, and I'm going to be putting more stuff on there because I'm going to use that as educational material for the trainers that I have. So they you could only we only have limited time. I can have them come in for, staff education without paying them too much. So
Uh-huh.
I'm going to put a lot of that stuff online. So a lot of new stuff coming. I'm wearing my professional shirt today to uh kind of celebrate that rollout. But yeah, if you're in our area, well, my area, South Houston area, all the way down to Galveston, look at that. And website's going to be coming out soon, and get on the roll so you can get fit and tell your friends. Tell your friends about us. But yeah, I want that channel to grow too. Everybody that comments on our stuff, ISO, Jason, Scott, they've all expressed interest in fitness and stuff. So just tell your friends, man. Put us on social media. Look, add us to your Facebook. Real Fitness 2011 is the Facebook page. Real Fitness 2011. Instagram, I think, is the same. I'm going to start updating that one. I suck at Instagram, but I'm going to start working on that one. So yeah, I did want to pimp that out because they're our sponsor. Uh, they're our sponsor because that's how I get paid in real life. So, but yeah, get on it. Take care of your mental health. Take the Big Five test. I think it's psychology.org that has the official Big Five personality test. It takes like 20 minutes. If you don't understand that, then
Hmm.
you don't know yourself. And when you do understand that, you can kind of parse out like, that decision I made that I kind of didn't like, that's because of this. It's the most accurate one.
All right. Let us know how it goes. And if you have any thoughts, comments, questions,
Yeah.
and we will see y'all next time.
Like, subscribe, share, all of those things. If you made it this far, you at least like us enough to do that.